Picture this. You wake up, you look at your massive to-do list, and before you even get out of bed, you just feel completely exhausted. Have you ever felt like you simply don't have enough hours in the day or enough energy in your body to do everything you actually want to do? Well, you are definitely not alone in that. Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to unpack a totally paradigm-shifting approach to productivity. Today, we're completely flipping the script on how you tackle your biggest goals. We're going to turn them from daunting mountains into absolute guarantees just by changing how you start. We'll be breaking down the fascinating psychology of why we fail so often and how a totally counterintuitive strategy can actually make you virtually unstoppable.
So, let me ask you a question. Can you realistically manage practicing the piano, reading books, meditating, and exercising every single day, all while holding down a full-time job or going to school? Let's be real. For most of us, just hearing that list sounds like a quick ticket to burnout. Trying to balance our daily energy across so many competing goals usually feels like we're just setting ourselves up for failure. But here is the crazy part. You actually can do all of these things daily. The real reason you currently struggle isn't because you lack discipline, and it's certainly not because you don't have the time. It's actually because there's a hidden psychological trap in how we naturally set our goals, and this trap almost ensures we fail before we even begin.
Let's look at exactly how this trap plays out in everyday life. Imagine your goal is to go to the gym and do a really intense 1-hour workout. But, life happens. Traffic is bad, work runs late, and you look at your watch, you realize you only have 40 minutes to spare before you have to be home. Now, pure logic would say, hey, 40 minutes of exercise is way better than nothing, let's go. But human psychology doesn't work like a calculator, does it? When you set these high, rigid expectations and suddenly realize you can't perfectly meet them, your brain throws a tantrum. You'll likely just say screw it and settle for 0 minutes of exercise. Because that original 1-hour goal feels ruined, you don't even try.
This right here is what we call the high expectation trap. And honestly, it is the fundamental flaw in how we approach productivity. We constantly expect way too much from ourselves, and as a direct result of carrying the weight of those massive expectations, we end up getting absolutely nothing done. Our high expectations, the very things we think are pushing us forward, are exactly what's preventing us from taking action. We think aiming for the stars is motivating, but when you're stressed out, running on 4 hours of sleep, or just short on time, that heavy expectation doesn't motivate you, it acts like a giant brick wall. We end up entirely paralyzed by our own ambition.
So how do we escape this trap? Well, we have to completely reverse our thinking. We need to embrace the brilliant concept of the mini-habit. What is a mini-habit? It's a goal so incredibly small where the baseline expectation is so profoundly low that you can do it every single day without fail. Just pause and think about that for a second. We're talking about a goal so tiny that even if you're having a terrible mental health day, or you're exhausted after a brutal 12-hour shift, or you're just feeling incredibly lazy, you literally have absolutely no excuses. You lower the bar so close to the floor that stepping over it doesn't even require you to lift your feet.
Let me give you a super tangible example of how this looks. Let's say you've decided you want to build a daily meditation habit. If you start by demanding a 20-minute daily session from yourself, you're going to constantly find excuses. You'll tell yourself, oh, I have a meeting in 20 minutes, I can't start now, or I'm just too wired, I don't have the time to settle down. And boom, another day passes with 0 meditation. The incredibly simple solution here, shrink it. Shrink it all the way down to just 2 minutes. Instead of 20, demand only 2 minutes of your time. Suddenly, the entire psychological weight of the task just evaporates. No matter how utterly chaotic your day is, you can always find 2 minutes.
And this naturally builds into a highly reliable, really elegant 3-step system. Step 1, you set that micro goal, like 2 minutes of meditation, or maybe just doing 2 push-ups. Step 2, because that goal is so comically small, you inherently eliminate all the mental resistance and friction. You just don't dread a 2-minute task the way you dread a 1-hour grueling session. And then step 3, you actually achieve it daily. By shrinking the goal, you basically strip away your brain's ability to make excuses, guaranteeing you hit that target every single day. Over time, this daily streak of success builds an absolutely unshakable foundation of self-trust. You stop feeling guilty about missing days simply because you never miss a day.
Now, right about now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking. You're wondering, okay, but if my goal is to read just 1 single page of a book a day, isn't that actually kind of pathetic? Like, that won't actually get me anywhere near finishing a book. It's a completely fair question. You might think such a minuscule effort is just a waste of time. But this is exactly where the underlying science of motion completely flips the equation on its head. You see, a 1-page goal isn't your ceiling. You're not forbidden from reading more. That 1 page is just your floor. It's the absolute minimum.
To really understand why this works so incredibly well, we actually have to take a quick detour into physics. Seriously, high school physics. Think back to Newton's first law of motion. It states that objects in motion tend to stay in motion, and objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Believe it or not, this fundamental law of physics applies absolutely perfectly to human behavior and productivity. When you're sitting on the couch, endlessly scrolling on your phone, you're an object at rest. Forcing an object at rest to suddenly jump up and dive into a grueling 2-hour study session requires a gargantuan amount of energy. But once you simply begin, once you transition into an object in motion, natural momentum takes the wheel.
This brings us to a massive psychological concept, human momentum. When it comes to getting things done, starting is literally the only hurdle that actually matters. If you commit to just 3 minutes of studying, which is your mini habit, the massive initial friction of dragging yourself off the couch just vanishes. You sit down, you crack open the laptop, and congratulations, you are officially in motion. What happens next feels like magic. Because the pressure is totally off, you'll very often find yourself naturally studying for 30 minutes or an hour without any of that awful mental strain. That 3-minute mini version effortlessly expands simply because you tricked your brain into overcoming the absolute hardest part, which is just getting started.
Let's look at another super common scenario. Say your expectation is to deep clean your entire bedroom. When you're tired after a long day, the mere thought of all that sorting, vacuuming, and dusting seems completely daunting. It feels like a giant puzzle you don't want to solve. So what do? You do nothing. But if your expectation is simply to just organize your desk, well, that's an easy momentum-building victory. You straighten up your papers, and because you're already up on your feet and moving, you get this little spark of motivation. You think, hey, while I'm up, I might as well put these clothes away. Even if you stop there, you still organized your desk, which is undeniably better than doing nothing at all.
To really appreciate how powerful this is, we need to take a hard look at the exhausting life cycle of a typical high-expectation habit. We've all lived this. On day 1, you set a huge, ambitious goal, and you feel incredibly motivated. You completely crush it. But by day 4, life gets messy. A friend calls, you stay up late, and whoops, you miss a day. You feel a little ping of guilt. By day 6, your energy naturally dips, and suddenly you miss 2 days in a row. By day 7, the whole psychological structure just falls apart entirely and you abandon the habit. Actually, this typical approach is practically hardwired for a cascade of failure the second life gets a little bit tough.
Now, I want you to compare that brutal, guilt-ridden cycle to the minimal habit approach. A typical habit demands incredibly high expectations and, let's be honest, yields a highly frustrating failure rate. But a minimal habit, it relies on a comically low expectation which unlocks the holy grail of productivity: infinite consistency. Because the commitment you're making to yourself is so incredibly tiny. Even on your absolute worst, most drained days, you can still read that single page. You can still drop in and do that one single push-up. You literally never miss a day. And as we all know, doing a little bit consistently over the span of months and years is what actually leads to massive long-term success.
So the core philosophy we're unpacking in this explainer boils down to one simple mantra: commit the minimum effort, but make it highly frequent. The secret to getting way more done in your life isn't aiming for these occasional, exhausting marathon sessions that just end up burning you out anyway. It's about cultivating a highly minimalistic approach to starting. It's about securing those tiny little daily wins that guarantee frequency. When you lower the barrier to entry, you invite consistency into your life. And consistency, not intensity, is the ultimate driver of true, lasting progress. It's the tortoise and the hare playing out in your daily routine.
So how do we actually apply this today? I want you to sit down and create your own can't-fail action list. Look at your most overwhelming goals and shrink them down into these microscopic, rapid-fire tasks that are literally impossible to fail. Want to learn a new language? Commit to studying for just 1 minute a day. Want to get in shape? Do 1 push-up before your morning shower. Want to read more? Commit to 1 single page. Let the momentum naturally carry you further when you actually have the energy and time to spare, but let that mini goal be your absolute non-negotiable baseline.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative question. What is the one thing you are constantly procrastinating on right now? We all have that one looming task, casting a shadow over our week. I challenge you today to identify that daunting goal you keep putting off and completely destroy the friction around it. Shrink it down to a 1-minute action. Do that mini version today. Stop relying on these huge, fragile expectations. Become an object in motion, and just watch how that tiny spark changes absolutely everything. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to finally start building the habits you've always wanted.